Here's some more from Yoga and Veganism by Sharon Gannon. The first yama is Ahimsa. Here's a quote: "Who will be the happiest person? The one who brings happiness to others." That's Swami Satchidananda. Ahimsa means non-harming. What happens when you practice Ahimsa long enough to become established at it? In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali gives us 5 recommendations called Yamas for how we should treat others if we want to attain yoga, the realization of the oneness of being. The first yama is Ahimsa, which means non-harming. If Patanjali had been recommending Ahimsa as a way of treating oneself, he would have included it in his list of niyamas, the observances one should maintain in regard to oneself. The 5 niyamas are saucha, cleanliness, santosha, contentment, tapas, discipline, svadhyaya, study, and ishvara pranidhana, loving devotion to God. None of these niyamas conflicts with ethical veganism, while the yamas all support it. I'm just skipping through this chapter. Through the practice of yoga and ethical veganism, we can realize that we were meant to live in harmony with all other animals and all of life. We come to know that our physical bodies function better without having to instill fear into others and to kill them, and that there is no nutrient that we need that we can't get directly from plant sources or from sunlight. We will come to recognize that our old bodies can be transformed and become light and whole, holy bodies used as vehicles to bring peace. We can truly become the peace we wish to see in the world, and all beings will rejoice in our presence and not fear and run away from us. Non-harming is essential to the yogi because it creates the kind of yoga that leads to eternal joy and happiness. According to the universal law of karma, if you cause harm to others, you will suffer the pain consequences of your actions. The yogi, realizing this, tries to cause the least amount of harm and suffering to others possible. In our quest for peace, it is valuable to recognize that the ancient wars in our culture's history were fought over disputes about animal ownership and the land needed to confine, graze, and grow crops to feed these animals. Interestingly, the Sanskrit word for war is gavya, literally meaning the desire to fight for more cattle, and gavishti means to be desirous of a fight. Both words come from the root gav or go, which means cow. The domestication, enslaving of cows led to war. Chapter 4, Satya. Here's a quote from John Robbins. If people knew the truth about how badly animals are treated in today's factory farms, if people knew how completely confined and immobilized these creatures are for their entire lives, if people knew how severe and unrelenting is the cruelty these animals are forced to endure, there would be change. If people knew, but too many of us choose to look the other way, to keep the veil in place, to remain unconscious and caught in the cultural trance. That way, we are more comfortable. That way is convenient. That way we don't have to risk too much. This is how we keep ourselves asleep. Satya means truthfulness. What happens when one becomes established in truthfulness? The consumer is not told the truth about where food comes from. Instead, we are told lies. The meat and dairy industries spend millions of dollars on advertising to deceive us. Because these industries form the foundation of our economic system, government agencies also don't want the public to know. There are laws now protecting the animal user industries from citizen scrutiny, and it is becoming harder and harder for animal rights groups to gain access to factory farms or slaughterhouses to film or take photographs. The few pictures and pieces of film footage that do exist and are available for public view are very threatening to the animal user industries. Why? Because in our culture, seeing is believing, and these films and pictures show the truth. A truth, once seen, is impossible to deny. We have a worldwide culture of denial when it comes to our treatment of animals. No one wants to talk about it. In fact, it is considered taboo to speak of it, as it may spoil one's appetite. When advertising is employed to sell meat, milk, and eggs, pictures of happy animals enjoying family life on the farm are used. calves grazing beside their mothers in lush green fields, or cute, fluffy baby chicks surrounding a doting mother hen in a country barnyard. The truth is that in factory farms and in farms in general, mothers are never allowed to be with their babies. Images like this are false advertising. Although in our hearts we know the truth about how food and animals are being used, we lie to ourselves. We perpetuate this untruth when we lie to our children and fail to encourage them to investigate the truth. To live by violence and then to deny that you do is to live a lie. Living a lie causes a deep fissure in the human psyche. Yoga seeks to heal that fissure. By contemplating these issues with sincerity, you will realize that they are just an outgrowth of our ancient animal slave-based culture, which surrounds all of us at every turn. This disconnection between one's feelings or heartfelt beliefs and what one says and does stems from a patriarchal herding culture as old as Babylon. It may be interesting to note that Sumer, considered the cradle of Western civilization, is where both the herding of animals and the development of written language originated. The Sumerian cuneiform tablets are among the oldest written literature existing. This vast literature, mostly in poetic form, tells of man's conquest of animals and of nature, and his move toward urban societies built on a hierarchical system of government, religion, and economics stemming from animal slavery. For thousands of years, we have conditioned ourselves to do things we know in our hearts are morally wrong. Yet we do them because we have been told to do so by the authority figures in our lives. We have been told that life is hard and that in some situations we simply must buck up and do them anyway, even though they are unpleasant, like killing animals. We live a double standard. We don't want to tell our children where their food is coming from and don't want to do the killing, but we don't question the lie at the core of our abusive treatment of animals. We use Humpty Dumpty talk to lie to our children about what we are really feeding them, and they grow up learning that no one has to be honest about anything. They're given the message that denial, not honesty, is valued and should be cultivated. We override our children's natural sense of compassion by showing them pictures on packages of meat of cute animals dressed up and happy, or cartoons of pigs eating ribs, cows offering ice cream sundaes, or smiling burgers bouncing up and down in a burger garden saying, "Eat me, please." We want so much for others to hear us. Half the effort in speaking truthfully lies in listening well. Are we listening to the anguished cries of the animals in factory farms or the shrieks of the slaughtered? I have observed in my years of teaching yoga that many students are quite shy when it comes to speaking in public, let alone singing or chanting mantras. Why do so many of us feel shy? Musician activist Michael Franti says that the biggest fear people have is fear of having to talk in public, and that fear is second only to the fear of having to sing in public. If we look more deeply at some of our more indigenous human relatives who have not distanced themselves so far from nature and live more closely with wild animals, we find societies in which singing and dancing are considered normal everyday activities for every member of the tribe. Within so-called uncivilized tribal societies, singing and dancing is not a performance art or display, but is engaged in as an actual play, a form of communication with life, rather than as a commodity to be taken to the marketplace. As we have domesticated animals and robbed them of their wildness, we have become domesticated ourselves and lost our natural ability to be expressive and spontaneous. We have become nervous, neurotic, self-conscious, and at the same time vain and arrogant.